Welcome to the local campaign, and thank you for joining us for our debate in the riding of Glengarry-Prescott-Russell. In just a moment, I will introduce to you the 6 candidates who are here for our debate. But first, I'll walk through what the rules are and the process for our debate today. We're going to start with opening statements of 60 seconds in length. Each of the candidates will have a chance to speak directly to you, the voters. And the order for those opening statements was drawn at random just a few minutes ago. After that, we'll move into a series of debates about important local and national topics. In each case, I'll start the discussion with a question directed to one of the candidates. That candidate will have 45 seconds to respond to the question on his or her own. Then we'll open it up to debate and discussion, including all of the candidates. At the end of that discussion, we'll go back to the candidate to whom the question was originally directed, and he or she will have 30 seconds to wrap up on that topic. We'll move through 5 or 6 different topics that way, and then we'll wrap up our debate with closing statements. We'll do those in the reverse order of the opening statements, and once again, each candidate will have exactly 1 minute to speak to you. So let's meet the candidates who are here for our debate in Glengarry-Prescott-Russell, beginning with independent candidate Daniel Fay. The Conservative candidate, Pierre Lemieux. From the People's Party of Canada, Jean-Jacques Desgranges.
Good day.
From another independent candidate, Marthe Lépine. From the New Democratic Party, Constantine Malakos. And from the Liberal Party of Canada, Francis Drouin. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. There are 2 other candidates who are on the ballot in Glengarry-Prescott-Russell. From the Libertarian Party of Canada, Darcy Neil Donnelly, and from the Rhinoceros Party, Marc-Antoine Gagné. They were not able to join us for the debate. So let's get things started, and with the first opening statement, independent candidate Daniel Fay. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for watching. I'm Daniel John Fay, and I am running as an independent candidate for Glengarry-Prescott-Russell. I joined the Canadian Armed Forces in 1988, and I was a proud member to serve for over 26 years. During my career, we lived in Castleman for 8 years and through the ice storm of 98. I retired 5 years ago, and I've now settled into Alexandria area with my wife, Catherine. And as an independent, I am free to listen to all sides of an issue. I'm free to make my own decisions depending on the facts that are presided. I will hold myself responsible for my actions as well as the people of Glengarry-Prescott-Russell will do. I'm asking for your help to be your voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is the Conservative candidate, Pierre Lemieux. Go ahead.
I'm Pierre Lemieux, your Conservative candidate, and I was the Member of Parliament for our riding for 10 years. A solid MP with a strong record and an excellent reputation as one who works hard and who delivered meaningful results to improve the lives of communities of our riding and the lives of the people who live here. I served in our Canadian Army for 20 years, so I am a veteran, and I am also a husband and the father of 5 children. As a result, I understand well service to Canadians and to our country, and as a father, I also understand the challenges facing families today. That is why we, as Conservatives, are focused on helping you to succeed, to prosper, and to get ahead. We have had 4 long years with Justin Trudeau, and it is clear to Canadians that he is not as he claimed to be. He is a huge disappointment, and many people in my riding are both unhappy and upset after having entrusted Justin Trudeau with their confidence in their vote in 2015. As Canadians, we deserve better than Justin Trudeau and his Liberals, and now in this election, it is time to use your vote to deliver that change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move to the next opening statement from the People's Party of Canada, Jean-Jacques Desgranges. Go ahead.
Dear voters, my name is Jean-Jacques Desgranges. I'm happy to have been invited to this debate. I'm happy to present to you an alternative vote, not from the major parties, but from a new party called the People's Party of Canada. I'd like to thank Rogers for having us here to debate. This is a proof of the fact that we now have free speech, which is being eroded as time goes by, something that I find to be atrocious. I worked in a number of domains, and I can tell you that wherever you are, I think I can relate to what you do, which is why you should vote for me. I was a Liberal for a long time. But I find that they've committed treason to me and my ideas and to the ideas of Canadians who used to vote for them. The Conservatives are not far behind in this election. Now, I connected with the People's Party of Canada. I'm there to serve you. I will be your servant within the values
All right,
of
that's
individual
time. Thank
freedom.
you. That's time. Let's move next to independent candidate Marthe Lépine. Go ahead.
Good evening. I decided to start at the very last minute because it seemed to me that it would be good to have a different voice to intervene once in a while. And as a student and later in life, I was known for the one who asked the questions and made the points that people would have preferred to avoid. And I find it's a lot of fun. And I might contribute something to Parliament by doing similar things to remind the other parties of some people that they forgot about that more than some things, and try to influence decisions. Of course, alone I can't change the government, but I think I can make some contribution in bringing up some research about things that, in my opinion, may not have been deeply studied and things like that.
Okay, thank you. Next is the New Democratic Party candidate, Constantine Malakos. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. And I just want to acknowledge that we are gathered on St. Lawrence Iroquois, Anishinaabeweki, Mohawk, and Huron-Wendat territory this evening. This is a very important election, and I'm very proud to be standing here as a New Democratic candidate. This is an election that is about the growing wealth gap and the growing inequality in this country, something that we have seen not get better through consecutive Liberal and Conservative governments. It is time for working class Canadians to get ahead. It is time for working class Canadians to get a break. I'm a working class guy, have been my entire life, and I am very proud to be standing up here and fighting for things like adding prescription medications to health care, fighting for things like eliminating tuition on student loans, fighting for things like protecting our farmers in trade deals that don't put them first, fighting for the people, fighting for working class people. That is why I'm standing here, and that is why I'm proud to be a New Democrat.
All right, thank you. Finally, the opening statement from Liberal candidate Francis Drouin. Go ahead.
Dear neighbours, for 4 years, I've had the honour and privilege to be your Member of Parliament. Through my father and grandfather, who both served their community in municipal politics, I've learned the value of public service. And that's what it comes down to for me. Politics is about helping people, investing in you, in your projects, and services that benefit everyone. Under the Liberals, our economy has thrived. We've lowered taxes for the middle class, put more money in families' pockets, restored the age of retirement to 65-year-olds, created quality jobs in the region, and supported our local entrepreneurs. Today, municipalities have a true partner at the table to support them in delivering on infrastructure projects. Citizens know that we will defend their rights and interests against conservative cuts in Ontario and across Canada. I have stood up for you for the past 4 years, and I always will. I look forward to debating with my colleagues and this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. Let's move now to a series of debates on the important issues. And I'll start with a question directed to independent candidate Daniel Fay. We've heard a lot of talk from some of the parties about immigration in this election campaign. What do you think is the right level of immigration for Canada? You have 45 seconds.
The right level would be, I'd say, around 40,000 a year on direct entry. But it's going to be dependent upon what is required in the marketplace, what is required around the world, and it's up to us to be fluid on that situation. There'll be a constant review of what the requirements are and what people need to do and what the world is looking to come to and enjoy Canada. Thank you.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on the topic of immigration.
Absolutely, we do need immigrants in this country. Immigrants serve a very, very important role in our country. My father was an immigrant, and I'm very proud to be the son of an immigrant. I'm also very proud to be married to an immigrant. And I want to say that we need to really focus on family reunification. Family reunification is taking way too long, and it's very important that people have their parents and their grandparents here to truly feel like they're at home when they come to Canada. And that is something that we really need to focus on. And we also need to make sure that when people come here from other countries, that we do what we can to make sure that their education is recognized. We have a lot of people who have skills that we desperately need in this country who are working in jobs that do not match their skills, and that's wrong. We need to do something about that.
So you will accept certain standards that are below Canadian standards, is what I'm hearing you say, right? When we got people who coming in Canada with certain qualifications, I think there's an issue there.
I'm saying that families belong together.
Well, if
I'm
you
saying
want
that
to talk
families
about
belong
families,
together.
I have no problem with families. The problem is that the rest of Canada has to support the parents who are
There's plenty to go around. There's plenty to go
My
around.
immigration program, the People's Party of Canada program is very simple. You have skills that we need based on the economy of Canada. You come in, you work for us. You bring your wife and your children with you. That's great. We participate in the economy.
People should not have to choose
you help the
between
economy
building
rolling, and then after that, the other parents, the parents and the grandparents may visit. They cannot stay here because how are we going to find? How are we going to fund them living here?
Well, you assume that they're going you assume that they're going to be funded, but they'll be in large parts supported by their children. And there's a old-fashioned principle in economics that if you bring money into the economy, it goes from one person to the other for a while and it multiplies.
That's
so
the
when you increase,
Jump in here. As conservatives, we believe in immigration, and Canadians also believe in immigration. But the immigration system has to be focused on what is best for Canada. And under the Conservative leadership, under the Conservative government, that's exactly how we focused our immigration system. In fact, we cleared up a lot of backlog, and we raised numbers to the betterment of Canada. Now, what we need to do, though, is we need to make sure that our immigration system and its processes are fair, and that they are just, and that they are equitable. And the Liberals have not done this. They have not protected the integrity of our immigration system, which is why Canadians have concerns about immigration when they shouldn't have, because they do support immigration. The Liberals have failed on this file.
I'm just going to intervene here because our immigration system is reliable. What Mr. Lemieux is doing is confusing people with the refugee system and the immigration system, and that's been fear-mongering from the Conservatives and the People's Party on the global pact that we signed in the UN. I just want to clarify that we need immigration. Otherwise, we're not going to meet our economic growth goals. We had 7 employees to one retiree in 1970. Even at the levels of immigration today, we will have by 2035 2 employees to 1 retiree. If we want to sustain the economic growth of Canada, we need an immigration system that works for everyone. And most of our immigration, the grand numbers of immigrants that come to Canada are economic immigrants. Stop the fear-mongering.
I do have to bring something up. Under Harper, the cost to become a Canadian citizen was brought up astronomically, and they also extended how long it took to become a citizen. The Liberals correctly brought the length of time back down, but they did not touch the price. And immigrants coming to this country are trying to
immigration, sir. That's the difference. If you want to make everyone come to Canada for free just so they can hang around, it's not going to work.
Not free.
And you know that. This is basic economics.
I am saying that we shouldn't be shaking down people who are trying to rebuild their lives for a little extra money.
Well, some of them are not rebuilding their lives. Economic immigration are people who actually have lives who want to make a better life here. They're not rebuilding it. You are confusing refugees. You are confusing refugees with immigration.
You're in a good place. You are rebuilding your life. I am someone who has immigrant
I'm the son of an immigrant myself, sir.
You seem to have what I hear, some people have a prejudice about immigrants. They seem to assume they'll be just lying around. Sometimes these immigrants work very hard, and sometimes work harder than some Canadians would. Look at the number of convenience stores. There's a lot of immigrants running them. They created small businesses. And that line is very. There's a lot of work.
One of the issues we want to do as a new order, what we want to do is
one at a time. Please go ahead.
One of the new issues that we want to present to Canadians is the fact that right now only provincial governments can sponsor. They have a provincial nominee program. What we want to do is allow local chambers of commerce, local municipalities, communities to sponsor immigrants that want to come work in their communities, because we need immigrants, but we also need them in rural communities, and that's we're struggling with that right now.
Okay, Pierre Lemieux.
Thank you. Canadians support immigration. The Conservatives support immigration. The key point here is that the the Liberals have failed on this file, which has raised concerns amongst Canadians and amongst immigrants
that's
themselves.
time. Thank you, everyone. That's time. And we're going to go back to Daniel Fay, who I asked the question to, and you have the final 30 seconds.
One of the issues raised was the thing about private sponsorship. Now, private sponsorship is a one-year program and I'd like to see that raised to 3, for a minimum of 3 years. It takes about 3 years for a person to go from an unknown culture to be somewhat happy and fit into our society. So I'd like to see that changed to 3 years rather than just 1.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to the next question, which I'll direct to Conservative candidate Pierre Lemieux. Your leader has attacked the Liberal leader on issues of honesty and integrity repeatedly through the course of this campaign, but a number of revelations have come to light about Andrew Scheer, about his work background, about his U.S. citizenship. So why should Canadians trust Andrew Scheer?
Well, I think it's a question of perspective, isn't it? Because Justin Trudeau has broken the law, federal law, on 2 occasions. And it's not Conservatives that are saying that. This is the Ethics Commissioner that is saying that. He has also claimed to be a feminist, and yet he has thrown 2 women out of his caucus, and he fired his Attorney General, who is a woman, and who is the first Aboriginal Attorney General ever in the history of Canada. Why did he do that? Because she would not do what he told her to do. He also had other things. For example, there is a woman who is an MP right now. She's a Liberal MP. She wants to run in this election, and he has blocked her because she would not call him a great feminist. So there are lots of ethical problems with Justin Trudeau. Canadians are seeing this, and they are losing confidence with Justin Trudeau and the Liberals.
It's open to everyone now.
I don't think it's asking too much that when a person's applying for the top job in the country and they list their CV, I think it's important that they be honest with Canadians. And in Mr. Scheer's case, maybe he was an American insurance broker.
Here's the thing that I want to bring up. You were asked a direct question, Mr. Lemieux. You were asked, why should we trust Andrew Scheer? And what did you do? You spoke about Justin Trudeau. I'm not disagreeing with anything you said about Justin Trudeau necessarily, but you were asked a direct question about Mr. Scheer, and all you did was talk about Mr. Trudeau. So do you get lessons in deflecting a question from Mr. Scheer? Because he's really good at it. Did he teach you how to do it?
Are the great failures of our current Prime Minister. Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister of Canada, and he is acting in a way worse than my children act. I asked,
you were
as the father
asked a
of
direct
children,
question about Mr. Scheer, and you were talking about Trudeau.
When it comes to honesty,
Canadians are tired of this. Canadians are tired of watching your party squabble and forget about Canadians. Canadians are sick and tired of watching Conservatives and Liberals squabble with each other over who's worse.
Do you trust
for Canada.
Mr. Trudeau?
People want us to get ahead.
Has Justin Trudeau won your confidence?
People want us to get ahead.
Has Justin Trudeau won your confidence?
I'm clearly not, because I am here running against the Liberals and Conservatives.
We are in
However,
agreement.
here you are squabbling instead of saying what you will do for Canadians. Canadians want to know what
I'm going to jump in. Excuse me, everyone. Excuse me.
Is going on in Parliament now. All of you.
When you're all talking at the same time, the viewers won't hear anything any of you are saying. So there's really no point in doing that. So please take turns. Who wants to go next?
Go ahead, Dan.
Our friend from the NDP was correct. You were asked a question about Scheer. I would have liked to hear an answer about Scheer, just so we can all make up our own minds.
So when it comes to the dual citizenship, Andrew Scheer gained that from his father without him applying for dual citizenship, and he renounced his dual citizenship. It's in the process of being renounced right now. This pales in comparison, this administrative bureaucratic process pales in comparison to Justin Trudeau forcing women out of his cabinet, firing the Attorney General because she wouldn't do what he said, obstructing justice, and being found guilty of having broken federal laws on 2 occasions by the Ethics Commissioner of Canada. Surely there is a difference here.
Do you believe that dual citizenship should be allowed or encouraged or forgotten if you run for Parliament?
So, interesting question, but not on the minds of the people in my riding. I've canvassed 30 30,000 homes in my riding. We have spoken with 30,000 families. This has never come up.
Then
What's
why-
come up is
then
affordability.
why,
What has
Mr.
come up is
Lemieux,
lack of
Mr.
trust
Lemieux,
in Justin
then why
Trudeau.
in 2008
All of this has
you
come up.
ridiculed
So we should be
the leader
focusing
of the
on what
Liberal
people
Party,
are
Stefan
saying
Dion.
indoors.
And then you ridiculed the leader of the NDP at the time. If you agree, we agree that dual citizenship is okay, but don't you think your leader should have been forthright when listing his
He was
CV?
forthright. He answered the question when he
No,
was asked.
I wonder.
Martin
absolutely
Lépine. Martin Lépine.
I
Okay.
wonder if he began the process to renounce his dual citizenship after it came up or before.
Before.
I wonder if, yeah?
Before,
Okay.
yes. And when he was asked the question, he answered the question in a truthful and forthright manner, unlike what Justin Trudeau has done.
I agree.
That is why I compare the two. Justin Trudeau is the Prime Minister. There is a standard that should be met as Prime Minister. He is failing miserably. Canadians know it. And to compare the two, you're comparing two completely different things
I
because
agree with you.
I
Mr.
wanna
Scheer
ask you
responded
something.
in a
agree with you,
forthright
Pierre.
manner.
I
Okay.
agree with you that we have not
Jean-Jacques.
had truthfulness and forthrightness from the Liberal Party for the
Absolutely.
last 4
Yeah.
years. No problem. When I got to Mr. Scheer, it's unfortunate that he didn't come up with all this information
When he was
before,
asked the question,
including
he
the fact
answered
that
it.
he
Mr.
never
Lemieux,
really
I have a
Please.
very important
as
question
anything
for you.
except
I have
as
a
an
very
insurance
important
salesman.
question for
I
you,
think that's
Mr.
an
Lemieux.
issue.
When he was asked the
Scheer-
question, he answered it. Whereas when Justin Trudeau was asked
Fine.
the question, he doesn't tell the
Okay.
truth.
But
That is
what
the
did
difference.
Mr. Scheer do exactly before he became an MP? I mean, I have a problem with professional politicians, those who have been in politics all the time. They do not know what it is to have the boots in the ground, to work in the mud, to work in the snow, to work everywhere. They don't know about issues. They are up there on a scaffold looking down and thinking, we know better than you. This is the problem I have with Mr. Scheer. He's up there thinking he knows it all, whereas he has never really worked as a good worker, knowing how to take
Wow.
commands, knowing how to do things.
I
that
agree.
he
I
I
have a
agree.
very
If you
important
say you
question
have
that
more
I need
private
to
To
ask
see
you,
what
Mr.
he is
Lemieux.
promising in
All
this
right.
campaign.
Constantine Malakos.
This speaks to a theme of an inability for the Conservative leader, Mr. Scheer, to give a direct answer to a direct question, and you similarly. And Mr. Scheer was also asked if he still feels the way he felt all those years back about marriage equality, or if he has evolved on that issue. And I have to ask, as someone who is married to a man, I have to ask you directly, do you still feel the same way you felt all those years ago?
Yeah.
Or have you moved on? And if you still feel that way, how are you going to represent the LGBT members of this riding?
Right. So I was asked that question last night in Rockland. And the answer to that question is that all humans have rights, including the LGBTQ community. And we as a government are there to protect the rights of Canadians, all rights of Canadians. And we're there to provide assistance to Canadians who also require that assistance.
All right,
that's
that's
the
time.
answer.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Pierre Lemieux, I asked you the question. You get the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so it goes back to this comparison. When Mr. Scheer was asked that question, he answered it in a very direct and forthright manner. And when Mr. Trudeau's been asked questions, he has not. He said that the Globe and Mail story was false. And he said it again on the national debate just the other night. And then, of course, the newspaper article said that no, what Mr. Trudeau said was false about the article being false. He has been found guilty of breaking 2 federal laws by the Ethics Commissioner. This is very serious for our Prime Minister, and he should step down because he's lost the lawful right to govern,
Okay, that's
having
time.
broken
Thank
the
you.
law.
I'll move now to a question to Jean-Jacques Desgranges of the People's Party of Canada. Your party is promising to balance the budget within 2 years. How can voters be sure that that won't mean a whole bunch of cuts? You have 45 seconds.
The People's Party of Canada is in fact promising to take care of the deficit within 2 years. How does that happen? It's with a critical look at the books, a critical look at programs which may not be useful anymore or that have matured. One of these is the Multicultural Act. There is money being spent under that act in order to promote many cultures who now can stand on their own. I'm thinking, for instance, of the Ukrainian community. I know many Ukrainians, they are doing very well. That act has actually done very good things. But now this has matured. There comes a time when groups have to be able to take care of their own. Like there are other...
That's time. It's open to everyone now. You can continue if you like. It's
Okay,
open to everyone.
basically, I'm going down the path as there has to be a critical look at the programs in place. I mentioned just one. There's others as well. We want to take less taxes from the people so that they spend more in order that this gives a boost to the economy and brings more money in, so that
Party has actually said that they are
that
against
deficit can actually be
multiculturalism in
taken
Canada.
care
Think
of
about that for a second.
way. And
Party has
a
said
good
that.
economy is where
People's
companies
Party
work
is
well,
against
where workers work
Okay,
well, and
one at a time, please.
are not taxed until they can't live anymore. The deficits that my friend Drouin is billing over the last year, particularly in the election period, are just astronomical. It'll be very difficult. It'll be paying those back will be difficult as a result of these promises that were made. Not only promises,
Desgrange,
they were
They,
just giving
Mr.
out money
Desgrange,
like
I wish
crazy
you had
over the
the same
last 4
concerns.
months.
Let's
I
let
wish you
everybody
had
else
the
have
same
a turn
concerns.
now.
Your votes,
All right,
Mr.
thank
Desgrange.
you.
Desgrange,
Let's let
I wish
other
you
people have
had
a turn
the
now.
same concerns for the environment as you have for the deficits, but you fail, your party and the party of the Conservative
That is not
Party.
true, Mr. Drouin.
You
We
have
have
failed to
concerns.
present.
Sorry, one
you
at a
have
time.
failed
We
to
have
present
concerns
One at a
for the
time,
environment.
a
please.
fiscal plan to Canadians. Your party does not have a fiscal plan for Canadians. We accept. We're going in deficit. We've presented our
For how
platform to
long,
Canadians.
sir? Are you going
We've
to
presented-
Are you going to be indebting our grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren?
They
This
need
is where you're going, Mr. Drouin. This is where
How much debt are your corporate tax cuts going to
We
put
have
us
the
in?
best debt
How
to
much are
GDP
those gonna
ratio
Tax is
cost?
going
in
to
the
come down to
G7.
Corporate
10%.
tax cuts have a price tag.
Yes, the
Okay.
price tag is 10%.
Let's let some other people
taxes.
get into the discussion here. Go ahead.
It's time for people to start making some hard choices.
Correct.
We should not have deficit spending at all. We know how much money is supposed to be coming in. We should know how much we need for the next year.
Forgive the personal question, but do you have a mortgage,
Justin
Mr.
Trudeau
Fay?
and
Yes,
the
I do.
Liberals.
Okay, that's deficit spending.
Justin
That's deficit
Trudeau
spending.
and the Liberals
No, it's
promised
not.
to balance
Well,
the
it
budget
is.
by 2019, and they have failed miserably. The amount of deficit that they have incurred over only 4 years
Is less than
tops
you amounted.
$70 billion. There is no
Says the
budget,
$150 billion man.
no balanced budget in sight, and in fact, over the next 4 years, should they win this election, it'll be over $100 billion. In fact, in the month of August, they spent $13 billion. They announced $13 billion in 1 month.
Well,
in
I'm
1
happy-
month,
I'm
$13
happy,
billion
I'm happy
in
to see you
taxpayer
care
money.
about debt.
It's
I'm really
insane.
happy
All
that.
right.
I'm
Martha Lepine, you've been trying to get in. Go ahead.
Yeah. One good thing to make the deficit shrink would be to adopt the same system of accounting that the ordinary people and corporations have to do, because the deficit comes from from adding the entire cost of an investment or some infrastructure to the current year's budget, instead of putting in the budget what the financing of it that is spread over a number of years. And if the deficit would be much smaller if the government accounting was done honestly.
What I
actually.
understand you saying is that you want to cook the books so you don't have the
No,
reality.
it's not.
in front
It's
of
not
you.
cooking the
I
books.
mean, no, that's not even
No,
realistic.
it's not
Madame,
cooking the
Le Pen.
books.
No, it's not realistic.
No, it's not
okay?
cooking the books. It's
The
coming
way-
back to the same accounting that companies do, and they're not cooking the books by doing it.
Well,
you have a
they are
mortgage.
not. You put something over time. You don't. But a company cannot go and spend billions and billions of dollars and saying we're going to make our money back later.
Well, no,
you know what
that's not-
happened? The last time
yeah, but the
last time
company
a
is
country
not
did
the
that,
government.
it was called Venezuela, and Venezuela went straight down the tube because it just
Mr.
spent like
Yeah,
crazy.
no, that's
And then
not-
after that,
We are
corruption
not
set in
the
and took
situation
off
of
with everything.
Venezuela. We have the best debt to GDP ratio in the G7, and the one way to find out whether or not we are so indebted that they must sound the alarm is look at what the international credit agencies are saying about the Canada's fiscal situation, and we're fine. Look at what the World Bank, look at what the International Monetary Fund are saying. They're not sounding like the alarm like they did in the 1990s. The 1990s, the debt to GDP ratio was 66%. In 2019, it's 30%, and it will continue to decrease over
Well,
time.
I'm also
Want a
thinking that's
balanced
cooking the
budget.
books, Mr.
It
Drouin.
needs to be balanced.
I mean, the
Okay.
UN, the UN
Constantine
is
Malakos.
saying a lot of things that are
Excuse me.
hold.
Excuse me.
For a balanced
Excuse me,
budget, the need
Constantine.
for a balanced budget needs to be balanced with the needs of Canadians, and we have to strike that balance. And sometimes we do need some deficit spending in order to pay for the programs that we need to make sure that Canadians get ahead.
Well,
that
I
does
beg
not
to
mean that we need to be fiscally irresponsible, and we do need to have a plan to get towards a balanced budget eventually.
It's
but
to each
sometimes we
according to
do
their
need to do
means,
some
Mr.
deficit
Money.
spending.
To each
If we
according
need
to
more
their
money, then
means.
come back to the House to ask for it.
Well, that's
We
why
do,
we need to
actually.
raise taxes on the wealthiest amongst us. We need a 1% wealth
don't-
tax
Are you
on
going
wealth
to
over
be
$20
one of
million.
the wealthiest amongst us,
I
sir?
hope not.
Well, no,
I hope
you
not.
want to stay poor.
I don't
oh,
want to
that's
stay
wonderful.
poor, but I
Some
do
of
not
us
think
work-
it is ethical
some
to
of
have
us,
more than $20
Some
million.
of us work hard
I'm
for every
sorry.
penny we get. We
There
work
is no
very
such
hard.
thing as an
I
ethical
agree with-
billionaire. There is no such thing as an ethical
I
billionaire.
agree.
I will
I
say that
agree
right
with,
now.
with my.
I think we can agree that the Liberals have failed on the balanced budget file.
I don't
Canadians want a balanced budget. They want fiscal fiscal responsibility in their government. That is what the Conservatives are offering, and that is where Justin Trudeau and the Liberals
No,
are
no,
failing.
All right,
Canada,
that's
we are-
time. Thank you. We're going to go back to Jean-Jacques Desgranges. You have the final 30 seconds.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. People's Party of Canada government would actually ensure that within 2 years the budget is brought back to equilibrium. It'll do that by looking at the programs that are in place and the programs that could actually be cut or reduced. In doing so, there'll be enough money and in the years to come to cover the deficit. And once the deficit is done, it is covered, a bright new world will come out of that for Canada. We'll do
right.
well.
That's time. Thank you. Next question is for Martha Lépine. I want to talk about climate change, which is a big concern for Canadians, obviously, but so is the economy. So how can we stop building pipelines and not suffer significant economic consequences?
Well, sometimes pipelines have economic consequences. When they destroyed the industry from the next province, like what would happen with more tankers going through all the islands on the west coast, and the salmon will be dying, so the fishing industry over there will die. So it's trying to balance, and the problem is that the oil industry has much more power than the fisheries. So. And there's creating sources of clean energy would create jobs, and even things like hydroelectric is clean energy, and there probably are places like I know of several smaller
That's
places.
time. It's open to everyone now.
I do want to say on your note, I'm sick and tired of this dichotomy of economy or environment. It's a lie. It's a lie that you've been fed to make you afraid to make moves.
I
on
beg
the
to
environment.
disagree.
No,
It is not a
we
lie.
can build our
It is not
economy.
a
But
lie.
without the
Let me
environment,
jump in here. Excuse me, everyone. Just there's 5 minutes left in this section, so
Without-
everybody's got lots of time. So why don't you wait until someone is finished talking and then begin talking at that point? Okay, go ahead.
So I'm just saying, we can stimulate our economy while fighting climate change. And our plan creates 300,000 new jobs in the renewable energy sector. Our plan involves a just transition for workers. It is not one or the other. You do not have to choose. We can have an environment that we can pass on to our children and our grandchildren and take care of our needs in the short term. I have family in Alberta. I care deeply about this issue. But we do need to do something. We need to move ahead. Our future is at stake.
and there's one thing I'd like to point out is that if the climate changes that does so much damage, well, we may not, without the environment, we don't have an economy.
So I'd like to, sorry, go ahead, finish. Okay, so I'll start here. I'd like to explain a key element of our Conservative plan for the environment. Canada's contribution to the world greenhouse gas emissions, and we know that this is a world problem, is less than 2%. However, some Asian countries, for example, China, their contribution is 28%, magnitudes larger than Canada. Why? Because they burn coal to create electricity. In fact, their pollution is so heavy it hangs in the air as smog, and we've all seen that on television. Our plan is to sell clean, reliable Canadian energy to countries like China to get them off coal. And if they get off coal, their greenhouse gas emissions will plummet. And if they plummet, that will help the world. It's also a win for Canada because money from Asia is coming into Canada to buy our energy. We're able to create jobs. We're able to build pipelines. We're able to move our energy to other countries that need it. This is a realistic plan. This is a plan that will work and that will benefit Canada
It's
and the
also
world.
a plan. It's also a plan from the People's Party of Canada. Okay, the fact is that now we're scaring people with this climate change. Pipelines actually are good. Shall I remind you of the Lac Mégantic tragedy? Oil is now presently transported in Canada by rail. Pipelines are much safer. In fact, pipelines will allow Canada to be self-sufficient to a large extent. Now, we're talking about alternative energies like windmills and stuff. Nobody really figured this. Nobody really knows this because it's not talked about. But as my colleague said here, first of all, China manufactures them. There's pollution everywhere from the coal plants. Secondly, the material need to build
Let's build a solar-
the windmills and the solar
Let's
panels
manufacture
are
things
completely
here.
are
Yeah.
completely dirty.
Let's
And if you think you can do that in
Yeah.
Canada without meeting your
Well, maybe
the
we'd
2030
make more money by manufacturing things here
you
instead
won't
of
be
buying
able
them
to.
from
Solar
China.
and wind have a place. We're still trying to find out where they fit into the grid. That's going to happen. It's not going to be perfect everywhere. There's other sources as well that basically any farm might be popping into is the biomass generation, where on-farm small generators be able to feed the grid, every farm or every co-op. That's also in
Well, the thing
I
is,
agree.
Okay,
We
let's go to
agree
Francis
that we should
Drouin,
be
who hasn't
investing
spoken
more
yet.
in solar energy and wind power. But the issue is what Mr. Lemieux explained, that Canada is only creating 2% of CO2 in the world, and therefore we shouldn't be doing anything. What he's not saying is that 54% of the countries are creating less than 2% of CO2, and that's why it's a global effort. With respect to Mr. Milakos, I respect his position that they want to shut down the oil sands tomorrow morning, but that's not a reasonable transition towards a greener economy. We want to build that pipeline with TMX and use those revenues, which will generate $500 million. And with those $500 million, we will reinvest it in green technologies. In fact, we're proposing to cut in half taxes to those companies who benefit net zero in their products. And I think that's a great idea. It's a
how
good
you
way to
gonna fill your
stimulate the
deficit?
economy.
give me a
How
chance
will
to
you fill
speak
your
sometime.
deficit?
Without going over Indigenous lands without consent, though, because
Negotiation.
they've told us they don't want the
Negotiation.
pipelines.
And I have a
Negotiation.
question.
Martha
Yeah, you
Lepine?
keep talking about the Lake Megantic. Well, how many other disasters of that magnitude have happened since? None as far as I
Oh,
know.
a lot have
Oh,
happened.
yes,
It's just
there
that they
have
didn't
been.
blow up in flames. That's why you don't hear about them.
Well,
Now,
then
I'll tell
if
you
it
one
doesn't
thing.
blow up in
I'll
flames,
tell
it's
you
not
one
that
thing that
serious.
will work on both those, the
Loves to make us
pipelines and
afraid
climate change.
to tell us that we're
and that's
fear-mongering when
called-
we talk about the crisis
and
of our
that's called-
time. But you
Yeah.
know,
And my point is the People's Party of Canada wants to stop corporate welfare. Corporate welfare is at the base of the tar sands. They're at the base of any oil production and whatever. Corporations will not produce oil if they don't make a profit out of it. If we cut the corporate welfare, we're absolutely certain that things are going to go a lot better.
So one thing I think we can say is the Liberal environmental plan is a tax. It's called the Liberal carbon tax. In a rural riding, it punishes the people that live in
called
my
Line
riding.
449,
They do not
Mr.
have
Lemieux.
access to
You get
public
it back.
transit.
It's a climate
They must pay
incentive.
the tax, and
It was
punishes
suggested by your
elderly
former
people
director
who
of
are on
policy,
fixed
Mark
pensions and
Cameron. You
poor
should
people.
talk to him.
Everybody pays
That's
that
time.
tax.
Thank you,
Must go.
everybody. Thank you. That's time. That's time. Please don't continue talking after the segment's over. I will go back to Martha Lepine. You have the final 30 seconds on this.
Yeah, I think we keep hearing the same things from all the parties. Like they are, not like the one is for something, the other is against it. And I think we need a more general view, not a politically based view of the situation, but a clear and like objective sense of things. Like that's true. If China is using too much coal, well, there's places in the world that are much closer to China
that's
that
time.
could sell
Thank
to
you.
them, not us.
Thank you. I'll move to the next question now for Constantine Malakos, the NDP candidate. Can we afford pharmacare and dental care, universal pharmacare and dental care for all Canadians?
we absolutely can. It's a question of priorities, and we need to prioritize the things that Canadians need. What we can't afford is cuts to taxes for the ultra-wealthy, and that has a price tag too. And nobody asks about the price tag for that. Nobody asks about it. But what we are going to do is we're going to put a 1% tax on wealth over $20 million, and that tax will bring in $70 billion over 10 years. The Parliamentary Budget Office has told us that, which will pay for our plan. We are also going to increase the capital gains inclusion rate from 50 to 75%. It was reduced to 50% by Jean Chrétien, not touched by Liberal or Conservative governments since, and it is time that people who make their money through investments are taxed the same way as people who go to work for a living.
Okay, it's open to everyone now on obviously there's a financial aspect to this question, but we've already talked about government finances, so we could probably focus on healthcare, pharmacare, dental care.
Yeah, there's a point is that, I lost, again, a thing like pharmacare will put more money in people's pockets. And some people will be more contributing more to the economy because they'll be able to take the medication they need to not be sick. We forget that aspect. We're always talking about how the government will pay for something, but we should also look at the benefits that that's going to bring.
Absolutely.
There was a study done, and over 90% of Canadians have access to a healthcare plan. This does not mean that there are people that don't struggle with access to pharmaceuticals, and in fact, a plan should be targeted on that. It should be targeting the people that need the help most. But here's something to consider. The healthcare transfers from the federal government to the provincial government are very dependent on the health of the economy. The Canadian economy has been flat for the last 4 years, thanks to liberal mismanagement. And that means that the transfers have been relatively flat. When you look to the U.S., you just see their economy rocketing off. Our economy should be doing exactly the same. And under a Conservative government, we will focus on a stronger Canadian economy, which will result in higher healthcare transfers to the province to help with these kinds of healthcare issues.
I'm just going to address some of the falsehoods that were said right now. 4 to 5 years
for you to have negotiations with all the provinces to have a pharmacare program done. I would like to have the prescription fees and the administration fees for doctor's notes covered by the healthcare while this pharmacare is being negotiated.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it in about a year.
But the problem with government's program,
and we have to remember that the 10% who are not covered by an insurance that covers are the lowest in the income scale. You know, so we want to keep them. We keep them poorer in order to avoid spending money that they badly need, instead of taking the general cost and all that. We want to look after our own citizens.
Yeah, I believe that these are discussions that need to be had with provincial governments. After all, they have the healthcare folio, not the federal. Okay, even though the federal does do transfers to the provinces, seems to me that it's not even controlled. Yeah, it's universal, but it's not necessarily spent by the provinces on health. I know that. Now, the problem with providing, like financing programs like that, is that the cost just rises as soon as people, these corporations that have the drugs or the dental, they will ask for more and more money. It's going to cost more and more money, which the government will start to pay, which of course will drive deficits at one One last word. I have to agree. I have to agree, though, that there has to be a limit with the people who do not have the resources. The people who do not have the resources, I think we need to help them.
Okay,
but
Mr. Desgrange,
level.
Francis Drouin, go ahead.
The falsehoods of the economy, Mr. Lemieux, you were never able to address the fact that we have the lowest unemployment rate in 40 years, and that includes your own government. Now, speaking with regards to health care, we've committed $6 billion over 4 years to ensure we have a national farmer care program. It's not going to get done overnight like the NDP is proposing. That's simply a left populist movement. We have to negotiate with provinces. We have to also ensure that rare diseases are included in this national farmer care program, because I've met a lot of families who depend on those rare diseases and who depend on those rare drugs that are extremely expensive. And we want to make sure that those are included in our plan. And that's why we've introduced the rare disease drug strategy.
Just a moment.
Just 1 second.
The first time the Liberals promised to do something about pharmacare, the Spice Girls were topping the charts. That's the reality. That's the reality.
And both you and I were 10 years old, so what's your point?
And my point is that it's still not happened. It still hasn't happened. And I want to say something to you.
And my wisdom.
Okay,
I want to say something to you. Because you talk a lot about how much this is going to cost us, how much this is going to cost us. But you said earlier you want to reduce corporate taxes to 10%. So that lost revenue, how much is that going to cost us? Reducing the corporate taxes that much is going to cost us an awful lot of money. And people don't like to talk about that.
Let me be very clear about corporations. There are huge corporations and there are small corporations. You can start a corporation tomorrow, Mr. Malakov, if you so wish.
Malakos, please. Please have at least enough respect to get my name right. Please.
Yes, of course. The heat of the moment. Please understand. But that's what it is.
I have something to say about
Pierre Lemieux, go ahead.
What I want to do is just provide a very recent example of sort of the
20
liberal
seconds.
thoughts on healthcare. They just cut healthcare funding to our soldiers who get healthcare services from local hospitals. This was in the national news this week. And so what's happening is our soldiers go to a local hospital to get healthcare service. The Liberal government will not reimburse the hospital enough money to cover their costs. The soldier must pay out of their pocket.
Mark Delepine, excuse me, Mark Delepine, go ahead.
Something about the cost of drugs. That's one clear example of the market failing, because the rare illnesses require that there's not much to take care of them. So the corporations can. I've heard of one that costs $1 million. Well, I think governments
Okay,
could
that's
control
time.
that.
Well, I
Thank
think
you.
governments
That's
have a role to
time.
play
I
in
just said
controlling
that's
certain
time,
things,
sir.
yes.
Just remind you that when it's time, that's when we stop. Thank you. Let's now go back to Constantine Malakos, and you have the final 30 seconds.
Yeah. I've said it, and I've said it again because it bears repeating. We do not ask where the money comes to cut taxes for the richest amongst us. We do not ask these questions. We just accept it. But we have been fed a line that we do not deserve to ask for more from our government. We're paying our taxes. Us working people are paying our taxes. We have a right to ask for more for those tax dollars. We do. And I'm asking you to ask for more.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to a question now for Liberal candidate Francis Drouin. What specific lessons have you and your party learned from the SNC-Lavalin controversy?
Thank you. I think we've learned that transparency is important. For the first time, the Prime Minister lifted transparency with the former Attorney General. But it's also important to learn what the former Attorney General said on February 27th when she was asked by the leader of the Green Party, has there anything been criminal done? And the former Attorney General said no. I think we've heard a lot in testimony, and we've shared with Canadians. I think what's also important is that we will always stand up for jobs. If I had a company at home and they were losing jobs because of a few corrupt individuals in that company, I too would fight to make sure that I fight for the workers.
Okay, it's open to everyone on this topic.
We've seen this. SNC-Lavalin, I just want to bring this up. SNC-Lavalin. It's an example of what we've seen for years. It's an example of business as usual. Both Conservatives and Liberals have put the interests of corporations above the interest of Canadian citizens. That's a reality.
So,
It's
Mr.
been going on
Malakos,
for years.
Are you saying that a few corrupt individuals, because of a few corrupt individuals, that 9,000 Canadians should pay potentially the price?
I'm not saying that, but I am saying that there.
Do you understand what a deferred prosecution agreement is? It's not about saving a corporation. It's about making sure that the individuals who are criminal get prosecuted and putting the company
Well, why
on
didn't
notice.
that happen? Why didn't that happen?
It's still in court, my friend.
Go ahead.
You got a leader who's broken the law. Where's his trial coming up?
I agree.
conflict
And
of
insofar as
interest, yeah.
transparency, I dare to say, I haven't seen any in the SNC-Lavalin thing.
you guys
in
will
fact,
throw the word
in fact, right
corruption
now,
around.
I mean, I think it's just a lie to talk about it. We didn't get anything. In fact, Joe,
Well, corruption's in the criminal
the
code, so if
minister
there's
is
something
now.
criminal that was done, the RCMP will take care of it. And as far as I'm concerned, they're not.
They were starting to
Well,
take care of
yeah,
it
well, they were
before the
taking-
election.
Mr.
Exactly.
Lemieux, I know you guys were very quick to jump on the gun to say that the RCMP was investigated, but they were not.
If I
Oh,
could just,
so
if I
let-
could just
Conservatives
summarize,
think this is
if
an
I could
outlier
just, thank you. If
situation.
I
One
could
at
just
a time.
summarize a little bit of this. Francis said it's the first time that a Prime Minister has waived cabinet confidentiality. That is not true. It has been waived in the past. He said it was very broad. It was not. It was very narrow. So narrow so that the Ethics Commissioner himself wrote into his report that his own investigation as Ethics Commissioner was obstructed by the very narrow interpretation
Exactly.
of what the cabinet confidentiality loss of restrictions was. And when he tried to get it relaxed, he was told no. So this is what's happened. Unfortunately, our own member of Parliament shut down the Justice Committee so that the investigation could not continue. So Parliament had an interest, Canadians had an
Mr.
interest,
Lemieux, let me
people
ask you
in
a
our
question.
riding
How
had an
is it
interest.
that further
and
testimony was
unfortunately,
submitted
our
to the
MP
committee
shut
after
it
the
down.
fact?
And you know what? He
Mr.
said, "I've heard
Lemieux, let
enough."
me ask you a
All
question.
I just need to finish one
Mr.
last
Lemieux.
sentence.
Okay, very quickly.
The Ethics Commissioner completely disagreed with what Monsieur Drouin did, and because he conducted his own investigation and found that Monsieur Trudeau broke the law.
Mr. Lemieux, I wasn't even mentioned in the Commissioner's report, but let me ask you a question. If I shut down the study, how is it that further testimony was submitted after that?
Why did you shut down
How
the
is it
study
that-
is the
how is
question.
it
Why
that-
did you
how
walk
is it-
onto that Justice
how is it
Committee
that
and
further
shut it
testimony
down?
was submitted?
I was watching your Facebook feed. Hundreds and hundreds of Canadians were dropping comments.
Yeah, your supporters were,
telling,
yeah,
not
but
my
how is
supporters,
it that
all
further
across
testimony-
Canada.
Never mind
It
his
was
supporters.
awful.
Mr.
Plenty
Lemieux,
of
you're going to
Liberal
accuse me.
supporters
You
such
should
as
never have done
me.
that.
Okay,
Accuse
again,
me.
one at a time, please.
Have the decency to answer the question. If you're going to accuse me that I shut down the committee,
You did.
have the decency to answer my question. How is it that further testimony was submitted after that?
The fact, I'm going to answer the question very quickly. The fact of the matter is, Liberal MP Francis Drouin shut down the Justice
You're not
Committee
answering the question,
and he
Mr. Lemieux.
outraged Canadians. That
How
is
is
the
it that
fact.
they've
And
submitted
that is
further
a fact. I
testimony?
have to agree.
And I think
You're
Francis
part
has
and
to
parcel
answer
of
for
Further
that.
testimony was submitted on the March 26th. So how was that happen?
I
How
think
did that
Francis has
happen?
to answer for that.
Yes, I think he does too.
Well,
Okay.
it
Your
seems to
actions
me
and the
mean that he
SNCL
didn't.
account.
Mr. Lemieux says close the investigation.
Shut it down.
And and then the Liberals says they didn't. Like, how can, if there was more testimony, the investigation or the committee work was not stopped. So that's
They did.
No,
That's-
further
All right.
testimony. was
Constantine
needed.
Malikos?
Well, what does that mean? They were
Okay,
already
excuse
written.
me.
It's no
I just
problem shutting it
recognized.
down and receiving
Excuse
our
me.
answer.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
I just recognized Constantine Malikos.
The reality is, yes, there was a problem. There was an ethics violation, and it was a very serious ethics violation. But I'm sick of the Conservatives pretending like they wouldn't have done the exact same thing when Scheer himself has said he would have made the exact same move. This is the cynical politics that Canadians are tired of. They're tired of Liberals and Conservatives continuing to follow the same pattern of putting corporations above their interests. Canadians want access to health care. Canadians want access to a cleaner planet. Canadians want jobs. Canadians want
you
to
can't
get
bring
ahead.
that.
Honesty.
They do want
Yes,
honesty.
they want
They want
honesty.
honesty.
Thank
They
you.
want
Thank you
honesty,
for that.
but they're
The
tired of they're tired of this pattern.
Let 'em
They're
speak.
tired
They're
of
right.
this pattern. Yes,
For-
of course.
A
Yes.
4-year pattern. Yes, a 4-year pattern.
One,
I have to
I
agree.
this is the reason why I've decided to run as an independent. There is not anything on any of these parties who have been able to say, I am good enough for Canada.
I might
Trudeau's-
say it now. Okay.
Trudeau's actions was deplorable. There's no way to get around that. The reaction from the opposition, overborne. It should have been a straight, simple matter. Let's get things
It's actually the
straight in
ethics
front.
commissioner.
And
That did the report.
try to be nice, try to be nice. This is the reason why I joined. I joined to this election.
I agree.
Okay, we're
We
going to have to
be
stop there.
forthright.
Thank you. That time is up. So we'll go back to Francis Drouin. I asked you the question. You get the last 30 seconds.
Thank you, and we will always stand up for jobs. And one question to ask, if one party is going to demand transparency from the Liberals, they must also demonstrate transparency. And the NDP, the Conservatives, the People's Party of Canada have yet to present Canadians with a financial plan so they can judge whether or not their fiscal plan makes sense. And we still don't know to this day. They want to balance the budget at all costs, but we still don't know where they're going to make cuts.
Okay. Thank you, candidates. We are going to move to the closing statements now. Again, these will be 1 minute in length, and we will do them in the reverse order of the opening statements, which again was drawn at random before our telecast began. So we will start with the Liberal candidate, Francis Drouin. Go ahead.
Over the past 4 years, we have worked together and we have achieved results together. Like Doug Ford in the 2018 campaign, Andrew Scheer has yet to present his financial plan to Canadians. His Conservatives say that they want to balance the budget, but he refuses to say where he will make those cuts. If a leader demands transparency, one must demonstrate transparency. To this day, we still do not know where Conservatives are going to cut in our public services. I have seen this movie, the one where Conservatives cut services to veterans, cut services to seniors, and raise the age of retirement to 67. They cut funding for housing and cut funding for infrastructure. I do not agree with this Conservative vision. I choose a Canada that invests in you, that invests in the middle class and those working hard to join it. I choose a Canada that invests in agriculture and infrastructure. I choose a Canada that believes in public service. I choose a Canada that presents a credible plan for the environment. On October 21st, choose forward.
Thank you. Next is the NDP candidate, Constantine Malikos.
I am very proud of the fact that we released our Parliamentary Budget Office report on our plan and that they told us that our plan was feasible. And it is a plan to move forward for working class Canadians, to get us ahead, to finally give us a little relief. You know, I'm a working class guy and always will be, and that is who I am to my bones. And I believe very fundamentally that it is time that our government serves our interests as working class people in this country. We need pharmacare that covers for everybody. We need dental care for everybody over 10 years and for the people who are making under $70,000 in the short term. We need these things because Canada needs to get ahead, and Canadian working class people deserve to get ahead. You know, we have seen Liberals, we have seen Conservatives, and what we have seen is that the rich get richer and we continue to struggle day to day. I'm tired of it. And if you're tired of it too, vote
Okay.
NDP.
Thank you. Next is independent candidate Martha Lepine.
So I don't think by myself I can change a country. So if I was in Parliament, I would continue to ask questions and try to catch the things that were needed to be said but were avoided. And that would probably bring some more transparency. I can work on that, and it can have maybe, it won't change the world or the country, but it will have long-term effects. And so, so that's, I think, for now, as an independent, that's about the best I can do. So,
Okay.
if you like it, you can vote for me. But don't forget that the party name next to my name on the ballot is no longer valid. Independent should have replaced it, but it was too late.
Okay, thank you. Jean-Jacques Desgranges, go ahead, you're next.
Thank you very much, sir. So we have had a really nice debate today. We obviously have ideas to exchange. No one has the true solution, but the People's Party of Canada is certainly one of the contenders for the proper solution in Canada in order to keep it as it is, a country that serves the Canadians, for the Canadians, and for everything that they do. The People's Party of Canada's platform is that of letting people be free, letting people express themselves through freedom, through free speech, all of that being done through fairness and through equality. It also, I'm sorry, but we're also looking for real solutions, and real solutions that will go on for a long time. The Liberal Party actually refused this. I'm going to stop right there before I stumble. Vote Desgranges, the People's Party of Canada.
Okay, Pierre Lemieux, Conservative candidate, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you. During this debate, I've spoken about how our goal is to make life more affordable for you. And if elected once again as your member of Parliament, I will focus my strengths and my experience to serve you to the very best of my abilities. As for the alternative, Justin Trudeau has betrayed your trust. As the father of 5 children, I ask more of my children in terms of honesty, integrity, and truth than what Justin Trudeau has offered to us as Canadians. And we propose that Justin Trudeau has lost the moral authority to govern. And if we cannot trust Justin Trudeau when he speaks as Prime Minister, how can we trust him in this election? Canadians deserve better than Justin Trudeau and his Liberals. And we deserve better than Justin Trudeau and his Liberals. The time has come for change right now in this election, one vote at a time with your vote. Let's work together to deliver the change we need by voting to elect Pierre Lemieux as the next Member of Parliament in Glengarry-Prescott-Russell. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Finally, Daniel Fay, independent candidate, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the things that was not really mentioned in this debate was the veterans. And I have a request for you to take back to your leadership, for the NDP, the Conservatives, and the Liberals, a joint apology from them, including the Bloc, to the veterans and their families for the debacle of the new Veterans Charter. You all voted for it. You're all to blame for what has happened to them. It was a cruel cost-cutting bill. And when the people who were most affected about it were not able to say anything about it because they were in Afghanistan, dying, being injured, mind and body. Please pass that message on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for participating in the debate. Best of luck in the rest of the campaign. I want to remind our viewers that you can vote on October 21st and in advance polls during the Thanksgiving weekend. We'll be on the air on Rogers TV and 1310 News on election night, starting at 9 o'clock with live coverage of the results. Hope to see you then. Thanks for watching.